Hi, I'm playing with my friends, but here's 60 Things I Don't Understand Part 2. Why is Monday so close to Sunday? Why do cats knock things off tables? Why does time go faster when I'm having fun? Why do we dream weird things at night? Why does pizza taste good, even when it's cold? Why do dogs bark at nothing? Why is math so hard sometimes? Why do socks disappear in the washing machine? Why does my phone battery die so fast? Why do we forget what we wanted to say? Why do birds sing so early in the morning? Why does ice cream melt so quickly? Why do we laugh at silly jokes? Why does the internet stop working at the worst time? Why do we get hiccups? Why do shoes always untie themselves? Why do we sneeze so loudly? Why does the sky change colors at sunset? Why do we forget people's names so easily? Why do we get hungry right before bed? Why do pencils break so easily? Why do we love chocolate so much? Why do we yawn when someone else yawns? Why does rain smell so fresh? Why do we get nervous before exams? Why do we forget passwords all the time? Why do we want what we can't have? Why does music make us emotional? Why do we laugh until our stomach hurts? Why do we say goodbye when we'll see each other soon? Why do we procrastinate even when we have time? Why do we get bored so quickly? Why do we always crave snacks at midnight? Why do we forget where we put our keys? Why do we talk in our sleep? Why do we get goosebumps when we're scared? Why do we love watching movies we've already seen? Why do we get tired after doing nothing? Why do we laugh when we're nervous? Why do we forget birthdays? Why do we always want more sleep? Why do we get addicted to video games? Why do we check the fridge even when we're not hungry? Why do we sing in the shower? Why do we hate Mondays so much? Why do we love Fridays? Why do we get scared of the dark? Why do we forget what we studied right after the exam? Why do we love memes so much? Why do we laugh at our own jokes? Why do we get nervous when speaking in public? Why do we always want what others have? Why do we get sleepy after eating? Why do we love holidays so much? Why do we get scared of clowns? Why do we always want new clothes? Why do we love pets like family? Why do we get angry when we're hungry? Why do we always want dessert after dinner? Why do we laugh at things that make no sense?